I don't hate Italians. I just hate The Sopranos.
Yeah, Italians are hard-working people. That's what
I
everybody
don't hate
wants.
the singing style of Soprano either. I just hate the TV show.
Well, how can you hate it if you've never seen it? That's what people often ask
I
you
don't
such
know,
questions.
Stizzy. Am I not allowed to dislike things I'm not interested in?
I was about to say, prejudging is not in our vocabulary.
Okay, I'm not interested in it. The end.
Then
There.
say that.
I gave no judgment on it whatsoever. I just said I'm not interested in having an opinion on it.
Now I
Like,
gotta pay. Now I
what
gotta
is
pay off this goddamn fine, but not to the cops. I'm going to that fence at Abda's Landing at Hughes
Oh
Bane.
fuck, that's
You
what I
know
should
where
have
the Thieves
asked.
Guild live.
No, I don't. That's what I should have asked. I have no idea how to get the thieves killed.
Oh yeah, you gotta have that little DLC, and you go to
Oh
that little country.
yeah. I own already a shitload of DLC for this, and I don't go to those places. I think I'm relatively certain I own the Somerset.
Yeah, I think it's about time for you to get the hell out of Morrowind and see more of the world, or what's left of
Fuck
it.
this country.
Yeah, that's the reason why I live. I often go to Anvil. That's basically my go-to place. It's the murder capital of the world because that's where the Dark Brotherhood is based from. Well, gotta run now.
This is the internet's worst gaming podcast. I'm your host Loki S. Jorson. Once again, joined today by my brother Thomas, aka Lord Master. Hello, how you
Hey
doing?
Loki, how are you? It's been a while. Even though we could have recorded weeks ago, but the damn summer heat really got to us the past few months.
I want to apologize if you hear that noise in the background. It's my air conditioning, but we live in South Texas and it's 1 million degrees outside. So too bad. I'll do my best to edit out the buzzing, but that's just something I'm going to deal with on my
Yes,
end.
it's still the dog days of summer. Woof woof.
I'm absolutely editing that out. So what have you been up to this last
Busy.
month?
Just busy.
Doing?
What I've been doing is obviously that ongoing video series of City Kings 3 with something that's totally out of the ordinary. Which I'm not going to add too
Okay.
much detail on it other than it's still ongoing for, I would predict, probably for another month before I could finally put that to bed and move on to something else. But there are other games I've
All
been
right.
doing too on the console. Been doing that as well, including one of which was the game that I got on Game Pass, I believe, only because it's on there. And you kind of recommended me a little because knowing what I've been into ever since the last year. And that's the Mafia game. Not to like,
Yeah, that wasn't on Game Pass.
yeah, not to like Mafia Wars. That stuff I used to play on MySpace ages ago. Not those kind of games. I mean, it's from the Mafia series of games, which
Yeah, as a remake of the like early 2000s PC game. I think it may have also been on PS2, and I think they were like Deck 17 or Hangar 13, Hangar 18, one of some damn Polish
Hangar
studio.
13.
That was close. Uh, yeah, it is a full-on remake. I think it was just called Mafia Remake, right?
It's called Mafia Definitive Edition.
Well, I mean, it isn't a definitive edition because they actually redid everything from the engine. It's kind of like what Last of Us Part 1 is pretending to be, except they actually improved on things. Yeah, I played that, I think, last year through GameFly. I rented it. Previously, I had played 2 on the 360 and Mafia 3 on the 1. And they had remaster editions of, quote-unquote, remaster editions of those for current gen. They kind of fucked up on the sequel. Like, Mafia 2 is really bad in terms of, like, playability. 3 is basically still the same game as it was at launch. Just, if you enjoy doing the same thing over and over again, and I don't mind that at all, it's fine. What do you think of the Mafia remake, as I'll just call it from here?
Yeah, I mean, it just graphically, it kind of looks like a game made in 2016. You know, which is around the same time as Mafia 3 came out, as you had aforementioned.
Well, if you had actually friggin' played it on the Series S you still haven't opened, maybe it would look better.
Who knows? Now, we know. I mean, then again, I could be talking about the whole genre of that, but that's if we're just talking about the game in
Well,
general.
for okay, well then fine, let's set it up. So for some reason you watch a lot of things, and one of the things you watch is Peaky Blinders, and for some ass reason that led you into The Sopranos. So when I recommended a game along similar lines, you were half-ass interested, and then when it finally went on sale, you got it. It doesn't matter the order. That's the base ideas. That's the setup.
Well, there's kind of an appeal to that to me, and this was concurrent of getting into the serial genre, so that's what the year 2021 is like for me, and I guess it's still continuing to this day. It's basically been a year of superheroes and mobsters.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with anything. I think it's just genre fiction, and one of the genre fictions you enjoy is crime fiction.
Yeah,
And of the variety of crime fiction, you prefer from the criminal side rather than the police side.
yeah. For the police ones, that's mainly from the Czech crime shows I've watched, especially if they are of a uh, Nordic influenced genre. You know, the one that's a bit more dark and gritty side of.
Nordic influenced Czech, which doesn't make any sense.
I mean, they take inspiration from that. Heck, the most recent show I watched was set in Norway, but American and Norwegian made.
That doesn't mean it has Norwegian influence. I would argue it's a comedy that has nothing to do with Norway. The setting is irrelevant. Anyways, the game.
Yes, that was set during the Great Depression in the fictional city of Lost Haven, Illinois.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fake Chicago. I don't know why they didn't just call it Chicago. No one would have sued.
Yeah, and it follows the rise and fall of Tommy Angelo, the Sicilian American cab driver turned gangster within the Salieri crime family. And and obviously it's an open world game, but I wasn't that much into the open world do whatever and all. I was just strictly following the
Well,
missions.
that's none of the Mafia games. All of them call themselves open world. There's nothing to do in the open world in any of the games. All three of them, you just drive. It's like, yeah, you can drive wherever you want, I guess, or you can walk there. There ain't fuck all to do in the city.
Yeah, you're just a wheelman.
There's not like side activities. Yeah, there's the main mission, and that's it.
And of course, the whole story is, you know, how, again, he was a cab driver, then just two mobsters, you know, came in. It's like, hey, get us out of here and all that. And I was like, okay, fine. And I still remember that one little mission. It's kind of like in a transitionary period in the early game, which I probably want to go back and record that clip in case that happens again, which I find it a little funny, where there, so you could say before I became a made man in the game, where I was a cab driver, and it's like, there's this old lady. It's like, hey, can you take me from this one part to the other? But what's funny is it's like okay, picked her up and then drove down a block and then turned to the left. Boom, destination. I'm like, you could have just walked all the way over there. The hell.
No, you couldn't have. It was the 1920s. The streets were terrible. Not like 2020 Chicago, which is like, I'm sure, the safest city in America, right, Beetlejuice?
That's like being the nicest guy in prison.
Anyways, so yeah, the story escalates. You escort two criminals. You know, you're their impromptu wheelman, and then because you discover things you maybe shouldn't have, they either kill you or have no choice to induct you into the family, so to speak. And indeed they do, and that is the impetus for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And the two, just real quick, the two sequels sort of kind of follow the narrative, kind of sort of, and that you play semi-related people to Angelo, and what's his boss's name? The actual family, Salieri.
Yeah.
Yeah, things related to the Salieri family have consequences all the way into the third game. So it ties kind of.
Yes.
But I just think they all are standalone stories.
Although interestingly, for the remake of something that the original game did not have is that they added some new activities in the free ride mode, which I haven't done that yet, which includes taxi missions and a racing mode, which takes place in a auto jump, which is featured in a mission called Fair Play. And And also you get to play it in black and white, which is if you are going to be into that noir stuff.
If you're going to be an idiot who can't see anything, yes, it's great. Oh, is it like red or green? No idea. Uh, yeah, the racing scene is kind of infamous from the old PC version, so much so that they had to patch it out or patch in a skip because it was so uncontrollably unplayable. When I replayed it, it took me 2 tries to actually win the damn thing because you have to just win the race. You can't just participate. And it's open wheel racing of those old like tube cars that just look like a big fucking dildo on wheels, and they're really hard to control. So best of luck whenever you get there.
Reminds me of some of the stuff that I've seen from you. I mean, we kind of mentioned that game before when we talked about racing games in general. The Saboteur, that racing bit.
Yeah, but that was in Paris in the 1940s. They still did open wheel bullet cars, and like in 20 years, nobody had a better idea for a car.
Of what it's supposed to look like other than can it go fast?
Yeah, I guess like aerodynamically they had a good idea, but the problem is like they were the most unsafe shit on earth because no one seatbelts literally hadn't been invented. Limiters on engines, the fuel was different, and of course the open wheeling, the fact that you could just get your wheel caught in a branch and die because the thing flipped because you were going 200 miles an hour. That's the thing is like speed hasn't changed all that much. We aren't going that much faster in modern racing than we were 100 years ago. It's just you're the vehicles are easier to control. But I've already talked about racing games before. Why are we talking about this? Mafia, go back to it.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what kind of stuff we would be saying for such things. Because, it's like there are some things I don't want to say too much, otherwise I would want to get whacked.
I am not interested in crime fiction from the criminal's perspective any longer. I watched Breaking Bad, and I don't need any more of it. Like, I enjoyed the show at the time for what it was, as you like to say. I enjoyed it for what it was. But I don't need any more perspective from the criminal. I'm tired.
I'm tired
of
of the criminal element.
I'm tired of pretending the bad guys are the good guys. Which is the other thing in Mafia. It's like, eventually in that game, you're going to shoot a bunch of people dead. And you have to realize as the player, it's like, oh, I'm an asshole. This is akin to GTA protagonists. It's like, you're the protagonist, but you're not a hero. You're not a good person in any stretch of the imagination. And I'm really tired of games that do that.
And
I no longer wish to play a game where you're a bad guy pretending he's a good guy.
Well, some just want to survive in their livelihoods, You got to put food on the table for their families. Some get into that line of work.
Yes, and that's the narrative of the story, but that's not the gameplay of the story. To me, the game part is the most important part of a video game, not the video part. A story and characters and good themes, all that shit. Ancillary, extra. Is it fun to play? And I'll be honest, the Mafia remake, not terribly fun to play for me. The stealth missions later on are very frustrating in terms of timing. Because it's like, oh, you can't move until this guy turns around. So just fucking sit and hope his AI scripting turns around. All right, turn around, run. Go, 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 go. Oh, you got caught because his AI scripting didn't let him not turn around.
Yeah, that happens.
It sucks, and it should be programmed better for a remake.
Again, it's from 2002. Whatever, that was the standard at that time.
The original, yes.
It's just, it was what it was.
Yeah, but it should be better now. If you're going to remake it, fucking improve it. Don't just improve it visually, you improve it
I was
mechanically.
about to say you want to improve the gameplay more.
That's the more important part, dude. That's the part that matters. It's the part you're using. The least, I said this before, but like the worst parts of any video game, are the parts you're not playing. If you're watching cutscenes, it's cool for story and character, but you're not involved in it, you're going to be less paying attention, less give a shit, because it's not in your control. And I believe this is true of everything. Even things I really, really like, I still think it's true. Because we'll get into this in the movie chat here in a minute, but like, characters and story are really good, but that's not the reason necessarily I enjoy a piece of art or a piece of entertainment. It's just like, I want a well-executed idea. I want questions that are logically answered. I don't want questions for questions' sake. I want actions leading to consequence, leading to more actions. We can have grand spectacle, we can have emotional payoffs, but the best films that are managed to, balance all this shit together, blend it well into an interesting piece of film or TV or game.
You're talking about arcs.
Arc is just a nice way of saying getting from A to B. It's like we have a character start here and they end up here. Did they grow as a character? Did they lessen? Did they learn any lessons? Did they improve? Did they improve the people around them? And I'll say this for the Mafia games, there are absolutely arcs in that way. There's no spoilers for the first game, but I'll spoil the second and third because you're not going to play those.
Just based at your behest.
Well, I think the problem is that they play differently than the first one. The first one's very dry in terms of what you actually do. You drive a lot of cars and you shoot a lot of guys. And that's true of the other two as well, but the third one adds like triple the stealth elements. It's more of a city control simulator. It's like, okay, I want control of, fake New Orleans. So we're going to take out these bosses. Okay, how do we take out the bosses? We take out the lieutenants. Okay, how do we take out the lieutenants? We take out their rackets. Okay, how do we take out their rackets? We go to the place and we shoot everyone.
Yeah, it's not about cutting off of the arm of the monster. It's about killing the monster.
It has nothing to do with it. That's irrelevant. The Mafia 3 is about a revenge story. Dick fuck to do with morality. Because you're not a good person at all in Mafia 3. They know that from the get-go. Which is why I think I like it the most of the three. And I know Rob, one of the co-hosts on this show from a while back, really didn't like Mafia 3 gameplay-wise. Because you do just kind of do the same thing over and over, like I described, to just go to place, shoot things, get information on bosses, kill bosses, go to the capo, blah, blah, blah. But I think narratively it serves itself very well in terms of you're betrayed at the outset, and, it's a story of revenge, getting your way back to the top. But there's nothing after that top, and I think that's the most interesting part of it. Because you get underling bosses that work under you, like you're the Mafia boss now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the game, if you've balanced out territories right, everyone likes you. But if you've given too much territory to a lieutenant and not enough to another one, they'll rebel on you. So it's like, well, okay, do you want to eliminate... You can finish the game in two ways. Of making everyone equally happy, which is kind of difficult, because they complain no matter what. Or having them turn on you, and you have to kill two of the three. So now only one person controls all the territory.
Oh, now I get it. This is just like, Crusader Kings 3. It's like taking care of your unruly vassals.
Yes, the difference being that there's no direct consequences for killing them.
Yeah, and plus feudal contracts as compared to, contracts of the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't got to...
But I'm saying, like there's technically... This is not a great analogy, because Crusader Kings has theoretically infinite vassals and people that will rebel against you.
There is a limit, depending on your country tier, like your tier title, whether if you're a duke or a king or emperor.
Okay. Well, in Mafia there's only 3 underlings, so only 2 of the 3 can turn against you. But the actual ending of the game is like you're confronted with more of a moral choice in terms of like, okay, now you control all the crime in the city. Now you're the top criminal. It's like, okay, now what? You're the top criminal. It's like, oh yeah, I did all this for revenge, and I end up taking over all the rackets in the city. So the game offers you is like, okay, well, kill all your underbosses and end the crime in the city, or just walk away from it. And if you kill all your underbosses, actually you don't end the crime, you become the ultimate crime lord. And it's like, or you drive away and leave the city to its own devices. I think narratively it's great. Gameplay, it's the same thing over and over, and if you don't mind that, it's probably the best of the 3. But it depends how much you enjoy sneaking around and whistling over boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, come here.
Yeah, you got me intrigued there.
I think 3 is worth playing. 2 is kind of a mess. I liked it back in the 360 days, but the remaster did it no favor.
They actually remastered 2.
Yes, but I don't know what happened. It's worse in almost every conceivable way.
When did it come out?
It's a colossal fuck up. The same time as Mafia remake. They released they re-released 2 and 3.
I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was only the first.
Well, I don't know how many improvements 3 has, but 2 is on the 360, so they ported it to the 1, And the first one is a complete remake of an old PC game or PS2 game. And 3 they didn't really do too much, because I believe it was an Xbox One game initially. So they, bumped it up a little bit. But yeah, 2 is a mess. Let me know when you finish the first game so I can tell you what happens in the second game, because it kind of leads into it.
Right.
Anyways, anything more to say in the Mafia?
Nothing really, other than this is all set in the golden age, right? W-
Okay, Golden
Um,
Age.
days before Rico.
If you want to call it that, sure. I don't think internet or interstate law prevents someone from disobeying the law. It's not really the point.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, you crossed state lines. Now it's a worse crime. It's like, okay, I guess I just won't cross state lines committing crimes anymore. The end.
yeah. Which is again, it's all about being in this thing of ours.
And as opposed to like GTA, where you never leave the one city, so it's like, well, any crimes you commit here are just, you know, local.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess you could get the FIB. What do they call the FIB in that game on you?
Yeah,
Maybe?
you're correct.
I don't know. At least GTA takes a more lighthearted stance on the whole criminal IDs. All the games do, because they're supposed to be fun. They're not trying to tell a deep, meaningful story. It's like, go out there and have fun, kid. Mafia games are not about going out there and having
Oh
fun.
no, because that's kind of like, hey, don't do this thing, don't you do it, and then you did it, and that means trouble.
And in what way, I ask you, is that an open world game?
Hmm.
What else? What else we got?
Hmm. So we're moving on from that waste management business to like that question that you saw on Microsoft the other week or month, and
I'd have to check. Yeah, I think it was directly Xbox. It was like Xbox was like, Twitter's a hell pit, and sometimes they'll have trending things. It's like, oh, what was the best anime you've ever seen? What's the worst anime you've ever seen? What's the best movie you've ever seen? What's the worst movie? And it's like, what is a video game? What's the best video game? And it's like, what's the first video game? It's like, well, I'm pretty sure my first video game was, what did I say? Space Invaders?
Mhm.
And not because I'm that old, because I played it on PC at Melba's place in Austin. I don't think you'll remember that. I'm fine with saying that. Actually, I'm not 100% sure you were born yet, so you probably don't
gotta
remember.
be 90 or 91.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, but I remember. I played Space Invaders, and then Asteroids, and then Pac-Man, all on that same floppy. They're all terrible. Those are all awful video games. I can't believe so many people love them for so many
Was that
years.
all on an Apple computer or something?
No, it was like some dang. I swear it was a floppy. I know it was on PC. I couldn't. I didn't own the software, so I don't know what format it was in. But in terms of like, what was the other questions? I'm gonna have to freaking look, aren't I?
Yeah, just dig it up. Just dig it up from that ancient archive.
A lot of my complaints about Gamescom, so that's when we recorded this.
Yeah, save that for Stacey and Rob if they were to talk about that.
Can't be that long ago. You know, Twitter sometimes hides your tweets. Did you know this? Has this ever happened?
No,
Okay, maybe it's just me then. Maybe they're just fuckers.
I don't tweet as much as you do.
It says 33 a month. That's nothing.
Oh. Whereas I only tweeted nearly 1,200 times, but what's less frequent these days.
Oh yeah, Twitter reprimanded me when I told Star Wars I was getting real tired of your shit.
Well, that's on you,
'Cause
buddy.
they played. Well, no. It was after Celebration, right? And they played the Star Wars. I unfollowed them, but I saw it's from something else. I unfollowed them at the whole Reva crap. And they played the clip from Episode 2 where Obi-Wan says to Anakin, "You look tired." And it's like, oh yeah, because they're tired of the convention. I was like, yeah, I'm real tired of your shit. And Twitter is like, oh, most tweeters don't reply like this. I hit reply, that instantly set up. I was like, oh, fuck you running. How you are protecting 6 million account and me a nobody. How dare I attack the corporation?
Still looking for that tweet?
It's not here. It's gone.
Okay. Then maybe we could I'll just name it down, and then maybe it'll trigger a memory for you.
How the fuck did this happen?
I actually took a screenshot of the games that you mentioned.
Oh, you
Yeah.
did? Well, go for it.
Okay, you said the Space Invaders PC was your first, right?
Mhm.
Your last one was Chorus, as of July 26th of that post.
Where the hell did it go? I found it. It was in replies.
Yeah,
God damn this
yeah, it
Twitter.
was July 26th on replies.
Okay. So the first, I'll just do mine. It was Space Invaders. As I put invades. No wonder no one looked at it. Chorus, Little Big Adventure 2 was for favorite. Most played probably Skyrim. The next as in I want to play next would be Gotham Knights. And they asked a really dumbass question, which was first game you show a caveman. And I said that's Sneak King game from Burger King because both ideas are ridiculous. I'm not replying that it's ridiculous to show a caveman in a video game. I'm replying that the idea of cavemen are ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm all about the ape man shit.
No, that's ape shit. It's not real.
No, I'm just saying that for funnies.
Okay, I'll edit my bit then. So what is on your arbitrary list?
Well, since this was written a few weeks ago, so I think it's largely unchanged because I know what I did.
Yeah, see, we probably should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but we've been delaying this episode like a month.
Yeah.
We're like, do you want to do Saturday? It's like, how about next Saturday? How about next Saturday? And then like weather and exhaustion.
And last Saturday we were going to do it, and then we got into...
We were both too fucking tired.
Yeah. So anyways, my first game, as far as memory is concerned, is Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
See, now, I'm going to dispute every one of these. Ready?
Okay.
I don't remember you playing that. I remember Nick and I playing that. I don't remember you playing
I played
that.
it.
With me?
Sometimes alone whenever you two are in school, or whatever grades you were at that time.
You didn't tell me about that. That was my console. You're not allowed to touch it. Okay, what's next?
The last game I played, which was last night.
At the time of writing this list, or you're updating it?
No. I had it listed there, and then did play that same last game last night. Which I played was Marvel's Avengers, which I recently got an achievement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The five super hives?
No, it was reaching the power level of one of the heroes to 150. Reached the max.
Oh, okay.
Did it with...
Let me guess, Widow.
Kate Bishop.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Next.
My favorite game, which is kind of arguable to myself, but since 2008, I would still maintain that my favorite game is Civilization 4. I mean, it's a big influence of all things strategies. I mean, I still play it to this day on occasions due to the mods that some people still update to this day.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
And game that I play the most, as in hours or days or months or even years spent.
It's got to be CK2 by this point, right?
After 5,000 hours since 2017. I don't know about that, but what I listed, the game I play the most is the Oregon Trail, regardless of version.
There's no way you play 5,000 hours of Oregon Trail. So it doesn't last 30 minutes.
Yeah, but nowadays I just play it on a semi-basis because I do it every 3 months.
That's fine, but the videos still aren't 4 hours.
I once did a 2-hour video on that.
I'm still disputing this. Next.
The game that I want to play next, as in which upcoming game...
Hasn't come out yet, yes.
Which, unfortunately, I never look forward to any upcoming games as a norm for me, but if there is one, I would say whenever's the next Elder Scrolls game.
Oh, you're going to be waiting quite a bit then.
Yeah, I'm not that terribly worried.
Yeah, you're not a person who's like really plugged into video game news. You just like what you like and play what you play, which is totally fine. I'm not disputing that at all.
Yeah.
And now the dumbass caveman.
Yeah, the first game that I showed to a caveman, Murder, 1994. Just kidding, ping pong.
So you mean Pong?
Yeah. Easy for him to understand, you know?
See, my issue is the question in itself is ridiculous. Like, let's not dispute the existence of cavemen because they didn't. But let's dispute let's not even go back that long. Let's go back 100 years.
1920 something, they're the Roaring 20s.
Yeah, in the 20s, you know, when Mafia took place. If you show them the Mafia game, it's beyond understanding of what they're looking at because they didn't even have regular television access then. Television was only just being done, so it's an absurd question. Okay, let's not even go back that far. Let's only go back 50 years.
That would be...
72.
Yeah. That's when the West went wild.
In 72, show them fucking whatever. What's an equivalent game from the 70s? No, there aren't many. There are a lot of games set in the 80s, but not enough set in the 70s. Fuck it, show them the Avengers thing. You know, the comics have been around for a while. Look at this electronic thing you barely understand. You don't understand the meaning of this thing. Go back 10 years and show someone something. I don't like these dumb conversations. On a very old episode of this podcast, if it's still available, I went to PAX South in San Antonio, and on the panel, they had a bunch of video game journalist people, who I all now hate, but the head of the panel asked them a really stupid-ass question. He was like, what game would you show Da Vinci if you wanted to tell him what video games were? And I'm like, who the fuck cares? What does that mean anything? It's like, oh, it's like arts. And Sessler, I believe, was on the panel. He was like, oh, you do the outline of the painting, but I finished it off. And it's like, who gives a fucking fuck? This pretentious nonsense. That's why I reject the caveman question in its entirety. It's like, if you want the question to be, what game would you show to someone who doesn't play video games to convince them they should, that's a great conversation. A ubiquitous, absurd caveman question? Stupid question. Pick a better question, I'll give you a better answer.
Plus, showing it to Da Vinci. Da Vinci's a very busy man. He's never had free time in his life, I believe.
Also, electronics. It's a stupid question. Pick a better question. I would even say, I would allow up to 5 years ago. That's as far as I'm willing to time travel to show someone a video game. I don't want to show my younger self the video games I play now. Absolutely not. We have enough time travel problems, and we'll get to those in a couple of minutes here. Time travel, as the Hulk would say. As dumbass Hulk would say, not smart. Because he ain't smart in that film, I'll tell you what. Anything else?
Yeah, it's you mentioned about someone ain't smart. Well, cavemen weren't smart either. That's why they went extinct to some. Damn Neanderthals.
Well, they didn't exist either, which is real.
It's like they either may have existed or those bones that we were looking at must have been deformed over the years.
Ugh, this is not the time and place for propaganda. I mean, it is, but video game propaganda is what we should be talking about. So next, movies. So to set this part up, every year for the last few years, I've been rewatching all the MCU Marvel, well, all the good, all the ones I enjoyed, the MCU Marvel movies. Starting with Iron Man and going all the way to Endgame, because this is really kind of, and plus one, like 2 bonus Spider-Man movies, that's kind of where they stop for me, in terms of my enjoyment of them. And this year I finally involved you for reasons that we don't need to get into in real life stuff.
It's just we found an opportunity.
I believe, I don't remember how long ago you saw Civil War with me.
Last July.
Last year when I did the summer watch through? Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't have any internet after that one air lightning strike.
Oh yeah, that was a hell of a day. Anyways, you wanted to see a few of these movies, and I thought, well, you don't need to see all 22. It's because I don't watch all 22. There's 2 specifically that I skip. And so it's like, well, how much time do we have here on this? Like 3-4 days? It's like, okay, what can we watch in 3 or 4 days? It's like, okay, I'll put in all the 4 Avengers movies, like 1, Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame. It's like, okay, what is necessary to complete that saga? It's like, well, I think Winter Soldier is necessary, and you've already seen Civil War, so it helps tie it in, so let's add that to the pile. Is there anything else terribly necessary? It's like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess, helps set up a lot of things that happen in Infinity War, so that one. And I think that's all we got, right? You had previously seen Iron Man 2 on your own? Was that the day before we started?
Yeah, that was the day before we started, just out of dumb luck.
It happened to be on television or something?
Yeah, it was on TNT.
So you had context for that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I can gush all day about this sort of thing, because, I don't want to tier them just yet, but I think definitely like 75% of these movies are good entertainment, and then, we can elevate 25% to, like, objectively good ideas. And, like 2 or 3 movies to be, like, really, really good and universally good in terms of both logical payoff and emotional payoff, but some of the movies are only like, well, this is only emotional payoff and the logic of it is kind of fucked. But from your end, you came into it like way backwards because you we've previously talked about this, but you modeled one of the GTA characters after Black Widow, and then you liked the movie, and I really hated the movie, but we already talked about that.
Yeah.
And so you came in kind of,
Basically, I started at the beginning of Phase 4.
yeah, the worst possible spot.
But for me, I know nothing about it. It's just read some stuff about it, and then I just decided, oh, get into it at this time because you had a source of inspiration, and you should watch the ones that won it in the first place.
Yeah, we didn't need to go all the way back to 2008's Iron Man and Incredible Hulk and then Iron Man 2 and fucking Thor and the Captain America one. It's like, you can on your own time go ahead, give you more and more context, but at a certain point you're overloaded with context and you only need so much to watch the big four, such as
And also needed that open time as well. That's another thing I often have trouble with, as well as me with
Yeah.
my very large amount of different interests, including that Mafia stuff we mentioned earlier.
So, my views on the Marvel movies are pretty much well known for this podcast. What did you think of the films we saw?
So where do we want to begin?
At the beginning.
Such as like Iron Man 2. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? I mean, this is before I just...
It's before Phase 4, it was the worst Marvel movie for me of all of them.
What's the reason?
And again, so part of it is visual. The visual of that scene where Tony is drunk. You can very clearly tell Robert Downey's not wearing the suit. Yeah. And they fixed this later because they hadn't yet invented the technology to not make it look stupid. But it's so glaringly obvious to me in that scene. Secondly, the whole point of him being drunk in the comics is because, not because he's depressed because he's dying like in the film, but because he's having a very hard time adjusting to everything going on in his life. And Tony in Iron Man 2 movie is just like, well, I'm dying, fuck it, let's just go crazy. And it's like, wow, it's kind of a lame reason to be an asshole. It's like, I'm just gonna give my suit away to my friend. Yeah, have it. Ooh, I'm a dick. And it's like, man, this is a really shitty way to get the story across. And the villain, played by Mickey Rourke, Whiplash, although he's never called that in the movie, is awful. His Russian accent is terrible. That's a bone of contention with me and Black Widow, the bad Russian accents. Yeah, I don't like Iron Man 2. It's like, oh, but it introduced Black Widow. I don't care. It's a bad film. Next.
Well, for my reaction to it, which I'm only going to use it by memory based on what I wrote to my friends who I will not mention here.
We don't need to talk about
I
that.
just said, I say to this one guy, I liked it. I was into it, which might be the similar reactions that I'll have when I watch all those Avengers movies for the first time.
Here's a positive about Iron Man 2 that will help lead into the other films. I think the other villain, Justin Hammer, is really good. Did we ever find out what that guy's name was? Sam Rockwell,
The
right?
actor?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I believe it's Sam Rockwell. We don't need to look it up. But I think he does a really good job of playing, like, Mirror Universe Tony Stark. You know, he's also a rich weapons manufacturer and super up his own ass dickhead. And he's, personable and very charismatic in terms of, like, acting capability. What little character he gets, his screen presence. Like, oh, this guy's cool. Why can't he be the real villain instead of lame-ass Whiplash?
Yeah, he got me a few chuckles when I was watching that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's well written. But, we can't have nice things. And unfortunately, that was his only appearance. He never came back for anything. It fucking sucks. Then, you and I started the movies with Avengers 1, right?
Yes, the first Avengers, 2012.
No, not the first Avenger. That's Captain America or Captain Marvel, depending on who you ask.
These racks.
The movie's just called The Avengers, unless you live in the UK, in which case they already had that shitty movie based on that shitty TV show.
Yeah.
What do you think of that
it's called
film?
Avengers Assembled over in the UK. What did I think about that? Oh, trying to think in my head, because other than what my initial comments was, but of course I changed it over time. So I would say that I really enjoyed it as a way to kick off these series of Avengers movies that we've been watching.
I think it's the only Avengers movie that works as a standalone film, because you can get context for the other heroes, like watching their solo movies, but you don't need context to enjoy Avengers. I think you need a lot of context for Ultron, Infinity, End. I don't think you need it for the first one. I think it's a good enough standalone.
Yes, I really enjoyed it because I liked the storytelling and the pacing of it. That's the most important thing with me, the pacing.
Mm-hmm. The movie speeds up when it needs to speed up and slows down when it needs to
Yes,
slow
exactly. I can get into the the quiet drama scenes just as much as the loud action scenes.
down. Yeah, that was a big staple of certainly Phase One of MCU. It's like we're gonna spend a lot of time talking and introspection to give you the emotional payoff of the action because the action is always going to be emotional. But the conversations that the heroes can have out of their suits and not transformed into just regular humans is important because it sets up the payoff. And that's for me one of the most important things in movies, especially. It's like setup and payoff. It's like, okay, this thing. What is the consequence of this thing? This thing. Oh, good. It makes sense and it's fun. It's it's entertainment and it's consistently logical and consistently good with the emotional payoffs. I think then we moved on to Captain America 2 because you'd already seen Civil War, right?
Yeah,
Moved on to the Winter Soldier.
which is technically we kind of viewed
And-
it as part of the Avengers series because of the other characters of that team.
Well,
were
it
involved.
helps. It helps. Again, I put that one on the list because I think it helps set up Civil War, which I wish you'd seen that one before Civil War because it sets so much of the basis of Civil War. Because the whole basis is like, Bucky Barnes is a fucking nut job. We need to bring him in. He's like, no, he was mind controlled. And it's like, well, only you know that, dude. And it's like, yeah, well, from this movie, he knows that. There's not a lot of evidence to support it because it blew up, such as it is. I've always described Winter Soldier as like a more political thriller until the end where he crashes 3 helicarriers. But,
Well, it's the
it's a lot of
climax.
suspense. I guess, but like the destruction of that film, like, do you remember in Civil War where Ross shows up and he's like, "You guys have destroyed a lot of cities, and I'm here to make sure you're held accountable for it." And it's like he wasn't really held accountable for the destruction in Winter Soldier. It's like, what are you gonna do? It's a movie, but I do think it's a very good movie. Doesn't make the most logical consistency, and there are no emotional payoffs for me unless you really care about Steve and Bucky's platonic friendship. You fucking weirdos on the internet. They were just friends. They were friends in the 40s. There were no gay friends in the 40s. I'm gonna edit that part out. What did you think of that?
My God, it was fun. I very much enjoyed it much more than Avengers at that time when I was watching it. I was considering for a good period of time till we get to the later ones, like it was my second best movie out of that series.
Well, I think they do escalate, right? They escalate to the climax of Infinity War, and Endgame is kind of the payoff in terms of like when you ramp up the stakes, and then there are bigger stakes and bigger stakes, and it's like, the universe is the stakes, or half the universe is the stakes. I also really like the elevator scene, because it sets up the elevator scene in Endgame. It's like, that's the other reason I wanted to put it on the list, because it's like, he won't get the payoff of the Endgame scene unless he sees the setup in Winter Soldier, because we're time traveling. What was after that?
Age
We went
of
right
Ultron.
right into Ultron,
Yes.
right? Ultron is largely considered the worst Avengers movie, and of the 4, and I agree with that. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. I would put it in like the bottom half of the big list. There's a lot of really good things in Ultron. It's just like the character work, I think, is just that Black Widow Hulk shit sucks, and I hate
I
it.
was a little uncomfortable with that personally.
I don't know why we didn't put that in. Those two actors had no chemistry with each other. He looks like 20 years older than her. It was gross and uncomfortable. And I understand thematically, it's like, okay, look, we sent Black Widow to recruit the Hulk, therefore she has a rapport with the Hulk. So she's the only one that can calm Hulk down. It's like, really? The only one? How does she do it? By being sexy. I was like, oh man, that's not a good way to do that. And then, real life stuff happens. It's like, well, the actress was pregnant when they did the scenes where she was like, "Oh, I can't get pregnant," because the original
was-
Red Room before they
Yeah,
fucked
that
with
was the main reason. That's why I felt uncomfortable with it. I was like, you know what they do to people, right? What they'll do to you.
her. Yeah, but like the rest of the film, I think works well enough in terms of like, Hawkeye has the most screen time of that movie. It's certainly a better Hawkeye movie than the Hawkeye TV show was for his fucking character.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Yes, I agree. Hawkeye is bad as a TV
No,
show.
not to me.
But the
For different reasons. Because this is during a period of time where I was
objectively, let's take emotion out of it. Objectively, it does no one any favors. It helps no one. It helps all the TV shows, and we'll talk about this after Endgame, but like all the TV shows do is set up the next TV show. For the most part, I say like more than half of these Marvel movies stand on their own. They can lead into something else, but they don't have to. The TV shows all lead into something else, and that's annoying. What do you think of
Yeah,
Ultron?
I was about to say, get my thoughts on that movie. Is since most people have said that this was the weakest of the series or the least favorite, least liked. Um, I mean, I wouldn't use those words. All I could just say is good, but not great. Because much like the other TV shows I watch, where we mentioned Sopranos earlier, where all the episodes are great, and even the ones that aren't great are still good, and that's how I feel about Age of Ultron. It's still good. Um, but I don't want to say, but I don't want to say too much about it. Falls. That's more of a your analysis thing because you're into the Marvel stuff longer than I am.
I think it's another one that's helped by the charismatic villain.
Oh yeah,
like James Spader as sassy robot really works in that film, even if it doesn't make too much logical sense. It's like, why does this robot got so much attitude?
Yeah, it's
like,
probably the Stark Tech thing. That's what I said to you when we were watching that. Probably messes with it a little. Oh.
His personality kind of bled into it. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but we can only go so far on these things making sense, really.
And even one of the friends asked me about Scarlet Witch because that's her first actual appearance in the movie, other than that little cameo in Winter Soldier. And they asked me what I think of her, and I said I don't know what to think about her personally. I find her complex and sometimes a little nuts to me.
Well, she was a misguided villain, and then by the end of Ultron, she's like, "Yeah, right, I'm full in on the hero stuff." Unfortunately, where we are now in Phase 4, they've ruined her back to villain status. But that's the future's problem. Ultron is a good movie, but it's got a lot of problems. I don't think the problems outweigh the entertainment.
No, it's not going to mar it.
What's after? I think we went to Guardians next.
I mean, obviously we can bypass Civil War. We already had our...
We did see Civil War, and I don't remember if we discussed it.
No, I don't think we ever discussed it because obviously when we did that last year, we recorded it a day after the Black Widow release.
Oh, okay.
So we never discussed Civil War here.
Okay, well, I think it's objectively the best Marvel Cinematic Universe film. I think it has the best character work. It has the most tight plot stuff. It has consequences for actions leading to more actions. It has logical, the people who pick the sides, quote unquote, pick the logical side for them. And even those who make emotional decisions, like, oh, that makes sense for you at the time. The reasonings for why everyone does something makes sense. I'm sure you can nitpick and say, like, okay, this is a stupid decision, this is a stupid decision. Certainly, that's true of every film. But it has the least amount of stupid in terms of, like, superhero content. I personally think it's my favorite, and it is... The emotional payoff hits so much better because of the logical consistency and because the right questions are being answered with the right answers. What did you think?
Based on memory, since it's been over a year since I last watched it, unless if I want to go into that phase of rewatching stuff, and that would definitely be on my list. I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. That one is likely my favorite out of the whole series of movies that relates to the Avengers and all that. Even though it's a Captain America
it has
movie.
the most... And it has that's the other thing. It's like Captain America 3, Civil War. It has the most... That's not the most. It's like... Zemo as a villain is the least imposing, quote-unquote, let's say, in terms of like physical presence, because he's just a guy. He's just a human man with no powers. But he's able to emotionally manipulate enough people. He's got this grand plan to fuck with Iron Man enough and fuck with Bucky enough to get them in this position where he can, like, destroy the Avengers from within, and he never had to kill any of them. And it's like, man, that's a much smarter way than just trying to blow them up like everyone else tries to blow them up, even Thanos. So it's a very smart film, maybe the smartest superhero movie ever.
You just
in terms of like the decisions characters make, not in terms of the logic of the story.
Yeah, you did describe it to me last year. That movie had a lot of heart to it.
Well, yeah, because it's set up well. You understand why Steve says and does what he does. You understand why Tony says and does what he does. They're consistent and they make sense for that character. Like they butt heads for a good reason. Now, what happens after them is kind of, again, it's like, well, let's take the movie as a movie, a standalone. As a standalone, everything makes sense and is pretty tight as a film. And the reason things happen makes sense, and that's why it's the best. It does everything that a good movie should do, irrelevant of the genre. A good movie should make sense. Its emotional payoffs are backed up by logical storytelling. It's a good story and it's told well. That's all I really want. And all the superhero shit is bonus, because I grew up with that crap.
Yeah, it's almost like
And
it could have happened.
Orders better than the Civil War
I was
comic.
about to say it could be set in any type of genre of that kind of story. It's just it happens to be in the
Absolutely.
superhero genre.
Yes, absolutely. From there, we moved to
Yeah,
Infinity War. Right?
we took it.
Because you
We
already
took a
said Civil.
detour on Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. I thought because we were talking about Guardians and we moved to Civil War. Guardians is the complete opposite of Civil War in terms of tone. It's very, very lighthearted. There's a lot of sad moments in it, but the fucking music and the visuals and the space, it's not space opera. It's like space trucking. It's just happening. And there's explosions and music. I mean, jokes and laughter. And it's not the most lighthearted MCU movie, but it's way up there in terms of tone. It's refreshing at that point. Because I can't remember if this came up right before or right after Civil War. Like, theatrical release-wise. I think it was right before. I might have been right after. I don't remember. What did you think of Guardians?
Oh, it was pretty entertaining to me. Like, I just did not know what to expect. I mean, you picked that movie for us to watch because you said it's because of the whole Infinity Stones thing.
You need to know about those characters to help the payoff in Infinity War better? Yes.
So, yeah, that was quite a left turn. That's all I can say. It was just more entertaining than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we weren't doing a watch along, like have I watched it on my own, I would have laughed my ass off way more.
I don't know why you need to not laugh while I was there. It's fine. Guardians 2, I think, kind of, I don't want to say falters, but hits a lot of the same beats, and they don't go into, what Guardian 1's go to like 4 or 5 places. Guardians 2 kind of stays in the same place the whole movie, and I was like, can we see anything new here? No, we're just stuck on this one ego planet. Like, well, that's okay, I guess. But before we, we'll get to that at the end. Never mind. Edit that part out. After Guardians, I believe we moved on to Infinity War. And I have very little negative to say about Infinity War. So, what did you think of it first?
Oh my! In fact, let me tell you, it's quite possibly the greatest I've ever seen in that genre. I mean, after when the credits started, after we were watching it, my first words that came in my mouth when I looked at you, I said, "Oh God!" After what we just saw.
Yeah.
Experience. I mean, it wasn't to me. It's not just a superhero movie. It's an experience.
Mm-hmm. It is both a risky gamble in terms of the bad guy winning, quote unquote. All the facets of character work, the interaction between different characters from different films for the first time ever. The smaller payoffs of characters dying. I guess you can say payoffs for that, but you know what I mean. The smaller emotional beats and the smaller logical beats. And yes, not everything makes total sense. Yes, maybe the things Doctor Strange does are kind of stupid. I understand that. But it leads to the emotional payoff of taking such a big gamble of, okay, you guys fucked up bad because of emotions. And it's like, well, now Thanos got what he wanted and won. Won the day, won the film. And it's, besides Civil War, I think Infinity War is the most universally liked film, and of like objectively liked in terms of all the MCU films. And because it is, I can't say because the risk is because it's so bold and that shit. It's just like, it works. The character work in that is so well done that it way outweighs, any logical inconsistencies.
Yeah, but holy crap, it was very dramatic and emotional in that movie. That was another thing about it.
And then I think we waited a day to see
Yeah,
Endgame.
yeah. Just
So
hold on.
I let you in suspense
Yeah,
on
just
that.
hold on, man. I even told the guys I talked to who asked me about what you think of those movies you saw, and I said, although I did not admit this to you when I was watching it, but I almost cried twice while watching Infinity War.
It's very emotional. Yeah, no, I'm not
Even the
begrudge
Yeah,
you
even
that.
the ones I barely knew, I felt it too. The emotion from it.
Yeah, because the fucking acting was really good and the script was really
It hooked
good.
me.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I'm sure back in your day, waiting for Avengers Endgame must have been dreadful back then.
you waited a day. I had to wait. Me and Stizzy had to wait a full year. And I don't think I said anything after watching Infinity War. Like for a while, it just sits with you, right? Like the amount of time between, let's just say Spider-Man, because he was the last one to disappear, and credits. There's a hefty bit of time there. The movie just sits there, and no one does anything. They just look around and they let you sit with this notion that the bad guy won, and this I can honestly, like, in terms of like edginess, or with the exception of edginess, this hasn't been done since Empire Strikes Back. The key difference being the end of Empire Strikes Back isn't Luke got his hand chopped off and Han got frozen. The end is Han got frozen, we're going after him, here's a new hand. There's a bit of hope at the very last few minutes of Empire Strikes Back, even if the good guys, quote unquote, ultimately lost the film. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's another thing about old Empire Strikes
There's
Back.
no hope at the end of Infinity
At the
War.
old Empire Strikes Back is that there were no major character deaths on that one. It's not about that, the whole.
Yeah. But people always cite that, right? They're like, oh, what's a groundbreaking film? It's like Empire Strikes Back because they had the gall to show the bad guys winning. And it's like, Empire Strikes Back ends on an upswing, guys. It ends on hope. Infinity War does not end on hope. It ends on despair. I guess hope if you're a big fan of Thanos because he gets to sit on his farm and go, I did it. I'm the boss.
Yep, now I can just retire and go home and be happy.
Watch the sunrise in a grateful universe.
Yeah. Before we talk about the end game, I mean, yeah, you went to do your daily routine since it was on Monday because we watched it mainly on the weekend. Those past films.
I had to go to work. We don't need to talk
Yeah.
about that.
I was mentally preparing myself to watch Endgame. Even I even told us to friends that I was basically shadowboxing. That's another way to prepare yourself for something mentally. It's like I was expecting a big fight feel, like it's the main event that's going to be coming in Endgame. I was actually excited to see the conclusion of this thing.
It was all set. Everything has been set up, and Endgame is the payoff, right?
Yeah.
To use these words we always use. You know what the stakes are, and we know. Well, we can't say we know the end, but we hope we know what the end is. So the film rolls around, and right off the bat, they say, "Okay, you guys failed. We're gonna go try it again." And it's like 5 years later. That's like that. When I first saw that, I was floored. It's like, fuck. They stayed with it. They just let them sit in their loss. And it's like, man, that's ballsy. To me, that opening like 20 minutes of film is way more gutsy than anything in Infinity War, because it's just like, no, we're living with this consequence. Now, unfortunately, here in 2022, they don't live with the consequence. But at the time, it's like, man, I can't believe you guys just let it sit. You just let them lose. It's like, what the fuck is the rest of this movie?
Yeah, basically it's like, yeah, we did that, so now let's just yeah, that's what it feels like with me.
Yeah, let's just move on. It's like, oh, how do we move on? Time travel shenanigans.
Yeah.
Oh,
man. It's almost like, you know what, life sucks. Let's go back in time. If for the more cynic that person would say.
See, now, a lot of people like Endgame's emotional payoffs. They don't like, and I understand this, the logical inconsistencies. Basically, Endgame is a big undo button, right? The whole point is to reverse Thanos' snap. So we have to get the stones back. Well, the stones don't exist anymore for reasons that aren't important right now. But they used to exist, so we'll just go back to when they used to exist and get them. And this creates its own set of problems that they sort of attempt to explain, not very well in the film. Hulk is like, oh, if you go past, that becomes future. And it's like, I mean, I guess for this movie's consistency, sure. And then, another big complaint is it's a lot of goofiness and silliness.
We're just trying to lift up for those that remember the events of the thing. We're just trying to lift up.
I told you at the time, I think it was a purposeful treatment to be lighter in tone up until the third act because of how dour and the ending of Infinity War was. Like, they wanted a huge upswing. They wanted way more positivity in Endgame. I think that was a studio mandate. And that's the other weird thing about Endgame. This is the first time we're going to talk about this. Is Feige and Victoria Alonso and Marvel Studios got more involved in the filmmaking process at this point. There was a ton of reshoots in Endgame. They had to change a bunch of shit. The movie, therefore, was made longer. There was the whole girl power moment montage mandate. It's just like real life seeping in. And it's like, oh man, is this going to be what happens in the future? And yes, indeed, that is what happened in the future of Marvel, is more studio interference. Specifically, Feige and Alonso. And they're still fucking with it to this day, to its severe detriment.
And I do not mind one bit. That's more of a me thing, personally, based on how I was raised.
For Endgame, I don't mind it. For now, where we are in current Marvel, I absolutely have a problem with it. For the emotional payoffs of Endgame, I think, are worth the logical inconsistencies. The payoffs are different than what they set up, yes. But I think the payoff was worth it well enough. I think the idea of we brought everyone back, and the cost was basically all of the original Avengers. We severely damaged them, for both meta reasons in terms of like movie contracts, and for in-universe reasons of like, oh, you guys are the future now, and we are the past. I didn't bother with the credits in Endgame because there's no post-credit scene, but during the credits of Endgame, it has the original 6 actors like do signatures over their characters digitally, as if to say, see, they were the original 6 in that montage, and now they're all pretty much gone, and the ones who are left are fucking shells of their former selves. And that's another big complaint. So I'll finally turn this over to you.
Oh.
Did you have a problem with Fat Thor or Smart Hulk? Because those are people's number 1 and number 2 complaints.
Thor, being out of shape. I mean, I can understand that being a drunkard is just a way to cope with all the stress and depression that anybody could relate to. But then again, I never drank, so I don't know how I feel. Just based on.
But people think that they're belittling Thor, making a joke of him in that film.
And as for Smart Hulk, I don't know much about that because I wasn't around in that era of comics. So how did this happen and all that?
Well, it's stupid. So, in the comics, he's actually called Professor Hulk. When he's the dual personality, shall we say, they merge the characters. But I still think that weakens both of them. Like, it makes... I think I said this to you at the time. It's like they've made Hulk weaker and Bruce dumber. At the expense of mixing them together.
Weaker as in personality or in strength? Like, what do you mean?
No, in strength-wise. Like, actual lifting heavy things. In the fucking first Avengers movie, he punches that giant space snake. Remember? In one of the best payoff scenes in the whole fucking movie. He's like, that's my secret captain. I'm always angry. Punches giant space snake. And in Endgame, he's like, my arm. I can't fight. The fucking scene where they go back to New York and he's like, I'm flipping over cars. Rawr. It's like, oh man, you suck. So yeah, I do agree with the Hulk problem. Because they just didn't know what to do with the Hulk. Like, they set up, like, Infinity Wars, like, he doesn't want to fight anymore. It's like, well, what do we do with that? I don't know. They're not one person. Man, that's not the way to do it.
I can understand the conflict between the two.
Yeah. But then it's no longer a conflict. Now it's emerging. They're one entity now. You've taken 2 characters and shrunk them into one character. Which I think is a detriment, but such as it is. The payoff, I think, is worth it in terms of, like, he's the only one who can resist the gamma radiation to undo the snap, to bring everyone back. Whoop, motorcycle. I got that part up. But, he's the only one who can take the gamma radiation to snap everyone back from dust. But Tony's the one that gets all the credit, which is a very weird thing, because he's the one that actually kills all Thanos' forces and stuff. I think that final fight with the three main guys and Thanos is probably the best stuff. That's really bogged down by extra shit, like the keep away glove crap. That wasn't needed. And then it's like, quick, give it to the person who can fly, and they fly right towards Thanos. I was like, you stupid bitch, what are you doing?
I was just smiling a little just based on that and reliving a scene in my head. I was basically
Well,
like,
it's good action. It's
yeah,
good
it's
action,
still.
right? But it's just like illogical as hell.
Hey, sometimes you make irrational decisions during a fight. It's like, okay, well, let's choose this move to, get after him and all that.
And then I don't want to drag this podcast down with nitpicks and breakdowns. It was like, oh, why didn't Doctor Strange use a portal? Oh, why didn't Captain Marvel fly straight up? Oh, why didn't fucking Iron Man fly straight up? Why didn't they bring the van fucking closer? It's like, why did they need to get to the close? It's like there's so many questions that can't be answered because they didn't set out to
It's
answer.
because it's happening at the heat of the moment. It's just there.
I guess if you want to take that side, but I don't even think I can't disabuse the question because I asked a lot of them myself first time watching. But I man, I have such trouble going back and forth. I'm of two minds of everything. I see both sides of everything. So it's like, okay, they did something dumb so we could have a cool part. But if they did something smart, maybe it wouldn't be as cool.
Mm.
So you have to decide. It's like, ultimately, this is entertainment based on comics or superheroes, and if we can get logical consistency and set up and payoff, awesome. If we only get emotional payoff, I think that's still good enough. I would prefer both, but if we only get one or one over the other, that's fine too. If you're not super happy with how these 22 movies ended, like, not much you can do about it. And certainly Order is better than what came after. Endgame is the end point for a lot of people, and there are two what I like to call bonus Spider-Man movies, Far From Home and No Way Home, that if you want to watch them, whatever. But anything else after Endgame in terms of Marvel, it's like they've assassinated Thor and Hulk and Doctor Strange, and to a smaller degree the Guardians, and absolutely character assassinated Black Widow after her death, which was amazing. Character assassinated Captain America after his death. They're going to do that to Iron Man here in the Ironheart thing. Hawkeye was a disaster. Loki was terrible. Falcon Winter Soldier was abysmal. WandaVision made her evil. It's like they had no plans after Endgame. They were just doing whatever. It's really, really sad to see where we were versus where we are now. It's like we hit the peak, and it is all downhill from here.
Yes, your opinion. But if I'm going to use a little wrestling analogy here, even though we don't often use
Sure.
that, it's kind of like when the WWF won the Monday Night War after WCW was bought, and then it's like, okay, now you are at the pick of the top. Now you could just do whatever the hell you want at this point.
And what they chose to do was a lot of dumb shit. And that cost them viewers that they've never recovered.
I mean, that's the only analogy I could think of because it's the only thing that I could compare in my head.
That's not a bad analogy. Because at the peak, pro wrestling had 10 million people
Yeah.
watching. What's the peak now? 2, if we're lucky.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a huge drop off, and it's not generational. It's just worse.
No, it slowly declined
quality
during the years, not sudden.
Yeah, it wasn't a tumble. You're right. And Marvel, to be fair, also isn't a tumble. It's a slow decline. But economy being worse certainly helps speeds the decline in terms of what people are willing to spend money on. Like, Avengers made $1.5 billion, or Endgame, I should specify, made like $1.5 billion at one point or some nonsense. Maybe even more than that. I'm not good with numbers. But then it's like, okay, what came after that? It's like Spider-Man made less money, and then the other Spider-Man made more money because it had the 2 other Spider-Man in it. It's like, okay, sure, that makes sense, I guess. Sony property. And then, Eternals made very little money, and nobody went to sell Shang-Chi, and Black Widow didn't make a lot of money, and fucking Thor, or Doctor Strange 2 ruined the box office for Thor because of how bad it was. If you only care about box office numbers, and if you don't care, I understand. It's irrelevant, but I think the box office numbers are a consequence of the decline in quality of the films. And there's been no quality of the TV shows whatsoever. So it's so bittersweet to go back to these movies for me, because it's like, man, I wish it had ended with Endgame. It's like whatever problems you have with what they did to Black Widow and Hulk and Thor in Endgame, they've done all three of those people so much worse after the
Yeah.
fact.
Well, let me say something here. I mean, we never talked about my thoughts on the movie Endgame.
Really, I'm sorry, I kept talking so damn much.
I know you have a tendency to do that, but still. Oh, my actual thoughts after watching Endgame, I was said it was great, a satisfying conclusion to the Infinity Saga. And when my friends asked, one friend in particular of mine, asked me, it's like, did you cry? And I said, almost did once, unlike two in Infinity War, in which he asked me which scene. And I said, well, I would say after all this I've seen, I almost cried when Tony Stark died in Endgame. Because, we started with him in Iron Man 2 as part of these marathon of movies I've been watching. Felt like I knew him longer than all the others.
Well, I saw him in theaters in 2008. I knew him
Yeah.
longer.
It's just, it makes feel like it, even though it's in the span of 4 to 3 days. Oh.
Yeah, that's
And
the other thing. We did kind of.
yeah, and he even asked me, it's like, well, what about that scene when Natasha died? And I said, I didn't cry on that one, but I felt pretty bummed about it. But I feel a lot worse for Clint having to see that. But
Well, hold on. I want to back up what you said. It recontextualizes what came after. Now that you have more context for Hawkeye and the Black Widow movie, doesn't that make those properties worse because of how it was done in Endgame?
yeah, yeah, and that's what I also said. And it's like looking back and knowing what I know now, I'm at peace with Natasha Stepp on that scene. She wanted to go out on her own terms. If it was the other way around, we would have never gotten to the events of the Hawkeye series, which I really enjoy, and we'd have never gotten to meet Kate Bishop, who would go on to become my favorite Marvel character currently, as well as my new favorite female character in general, replacing Sydney Bristow from Alias.
Man, people can like different things.
Yeah.
I like things you don't, and you like things I don't, and that's okay. It's just the way it is.
Who knows? Maybe I could like those future Marvel movies, whereas you may not if you aren't going to be around for those. It's kind of like we're going to use another analogy. It's almost like you're of the old Avengers, and I must be one of the young ones. The young Avengers and all that. Since I would be into the new
I don't
ones.
even know about that. And it's an all new, all different more Avengers, unfortunately, which is a different writing team. Which I don't know how much ideology we want to get into here in this long ass podcast, but in terms of we've replaced ideology for storytelling here. That's what's happened. We've thought ideology is more important than telling a good story. And when our budget is smaller and our story is lessened and I'm not interested in the new characters, it's like, okay, what's here for me then? If there's no emotional payoff, if there's no logical consistency, if there's no characters I give a shit about, what's left? The name Marvel? Buddy, I've read thousands of Marvel comics. Thousands. I've seen every story you guys can possibly write. I've read every character you can possibly write. You're not showing me anything here. So I get my Marvel stuff through online reviewers. I don't watch the content itself. I watch basically takedowns of the new shit because it's all shit. But you can say, well, aren't you still consuming it? It's like, yeah, I guess, but I'm not giving Disney my fucking money. Now, the Avengers video game, they're going to introduce Winter Soldier. It's like, oh, cool, a guy with a gun.
Yeah, because Black Widow's the only one.
That could be cool. And again, it's divorced from the MCU unless they give him, the eyeliner from the movie or something.
Which movie?
That'll probably be a skin. Civil War, remember when he... No, not Civil War. Winter Soldier, when he had all that eye makeup on him.
Yeah.
And probably add that as an extra skin. But anyways, overall, the whole saga, such as it is, what do you...
Still holds up to this day based on what you've told me about it, and now that I've seen it and experienced it all I could say is that I'm just very fortunate that I've lived long enough in this life to watch all these type of films that are revered in many people's eyes.
Yes, and leagues better than the DC stuff. Because we didn't talk about it much, but before any of the Marvel movies I showed you, we watched The Suicide Squad, which, in my opinion, is the best DC movie that they've done. In the DCEU, the Snyderverse, whatever horse shit you want to call it. Because for the most part, they're a fucking nightmare mess of logical inconsistencies. They've got a shit ton of emotional payoff, but way too few logical logical consistencies. But I think that's like these movies are good because they tried their best. They had the best writers and the best directors and the best actors and the best special effects, the best ideas, and they melded them well together rather than just throw this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Just go, make money. It's like it makes money because it's good, and it will keep going. It will keep making money as long as it keeps being good. When you separate good ideas for ideology, you lose money. I don't want to quote a phrase here, because you don't go broke immediately, you go broke slowly, which is probably worse. But that's just those are my thoughts on the Marvel films. It was a great ride, but it'll never be the same.
Yeah, it's almost like once in a lifetime.
Pretty much, yeah. If I cared about Lord of the Rings, I'd probably feel that same way about the new Lord of the Rings thing. It's like, oh, those movies are really great, and the books, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, the new Amazon TV show's ass. I was like, yeah, probably. Let's wrap this up. Anything else you want to say about what are your future projects?
Besides the ongoing Crusader Kings 3 series with that that Trade Empire series, what I've been doing at this point, with the whole trans-Saharan trade and the maritime Silk Road at this point, even though it's all mainly taking place in one continent, which is in Africa. Just the northern half anyway. Which is a series I've been doing called Al-Fargani. That's the name of our dynasty of a Sogdian origin. But it's not set in Sogdia, but set in originally Libya, then expanded to Egypt, and then we went to Morocco, Oregon Trail style, in terms of getting away from those people, and we're going to establish our own promised land, and we did just that. And then we came back to Egypt and made it part of our domain. And then we expanded further, taking the islands Sakatra and even all the way into Persia. Again, it's the trade of, on this side of the world, silk, and on our side of the world, in that part of Africa, trans-Saharan. It's the search for more money.
Any more GTA or Red Dead videos on the horizon?
A little bit more of Red Dead videos that I've recorded previously, but hasn't been posted yet. But they're scheduled to be posted on certain days. And as of this recording, I
probably wouldn't make any promises considering I don't know when this is coming out.
As of this recording, as for the GTA series of videos, 179 is the current. It'll go over 180 soon. And there's a possibility that I may record even more of those videos, as there's about 5...
On your Series S?
No. No. That's a whole nother story. Don't have much time on that. But all I could say is there's a possibility that I might make it up to 200 videos. That would be a great milestone. Of course, the next Oregon Trail video, that'll be coming in September, since I do one every 3 months. And September is around that time of the month that I would do the next Oregon Trail video. And then on October on Halloween, the Oregon Trail. The zombie apocalypse edition of that.
Oh, yes.
And whatever else that I may get
And where
into.
can people find these videos?
Well, you can find those videos of mine on the Lord Master channel. Do you want me to spell it out for you?
Yeah, I'll put the link in the thing.
Thank you, because I don't want to mess up again. Like the last few times.
I am only, you can find this silly podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and internetsource.com. You have to put the W's or it doesn't work. I still haven't figured out why not. I am on Twitter at LokiJarson. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.